So what we're doing today, inside of these roller guides on my mill, you can see there's two on either side. This is the fixed roller guide side, so this doesn't move, this stays stationary. This one here travels with this arm in and out, and I control that back from where I operate the mill. But basically what's going on is this one here, I got a lot of resistance and excess bearing noise coming from here, so we're going to pull this off. Take this big nut off here, pull this wheel off, and replace it with two new bearings. They're inside this wheel, there's two of these bearings. So we're going to replace those. The trusty Harbor Freight tools. I already took this off once yesterday just so I had an idea what to expect. This is the first time I had to change one of these on this mill. So you can see inside here. Probably could have wiped the grease off too. Oh, there we go. Okay. So that right there is your snap ring. It's basically a washer that just, when you pull it together, compress it and then let it go, and it expands outward. Sits inside this surface here to hold these bearings inside of this roller guide. No, it's working, friend. We got it. Oh, we got one. Not the, we're not in a nice shop with a workbench, you know what I mean? They don't seem like horribly unhappy. I mean, they don't feel like awful. Well, I mean, I was getting a lot of this one here. I actually think that one of the balls inside of here actually came apart. I'd have to clean all that grease out of there to get a better look at it. But I can feel it when I move this one back and forth. This one here is still in pretty good shape, but that one doesn't take all the abuse that this one here does. Tap that in there till it's bottomed out. So the gap, it's in. Try to keep like some downward pressure on it while you're doing this. We got one side in. Keep that thing from going flying somewhere into the sawdust to be gone forever. There. Put a little bit of grease in there. Slip that back into place, get our nut back on there. And then as this nut tightens up against this washer here, you can see we'll not have any more play in that whole assembly. Don't need to have that on there super tight. Just that's back together. Now I'm going to tension the blade up and make sure everything's adjusted right. After taking that apart, just want to check it, and we'll start it up and see if it sounds any better than it did before. All this is, this tensioning system on this mill, it's a little bottle jack here. You can see that they have mounted sideways. You just turn this here, put your little lever in there, crank your bottle jack, And you can see as I'm cranking over here, there's this little tab that'll reach this wire they have mounted there, and that tells you you have the proper tension on your blade. There we go. I mean, it's pretty simple, but it works. Gives you the same tension every time. Now we're around the front side of the mill, and I just want to spin this by hand to make sure the blade's tracking all right before I fire it up. So when I'm doing that, I'm looking at my blade and how it's riding on the band wheels themselves, but then I'm also watching down here on my roller guides to see where that blade's tracking at in reference to the edge of the guides here. And it looks pretty good. Close the door. And another thing I do, I'll come down over this side and I just look down at the blade on the bottom of the mill to see that my back spacing between the back edge of my blade and the stops on my roller guides, I want to make sure that that gap there is the proper width, typically around like 1/8 of an inch. I mean, it looks good. It looks about the same as it did before we replaced that guide there. So I think we're going to put a log on it and start it up. I just threw a poplar log up here. I think it's about 16-foot long. I'm going to cut some 1x8s or 1x6s, something like that out of it. I just want to make sure this thing's running properly now that we replaced the bearing in that guide. And 1x usually I can sell pretty quickly, so we're going to go ahead and see how many we can get out of this log. So after I got into this log, now, I mean, it appeared it was a straight log when I put it on the mill, but you never know until you cut into a log without seeing the tree, how it was growing. You know, if that tree was leaning a certain way, even though it grows straight, it might have, it's going to have like internal pressures and stresses on the wood. So when you put it on the mill and you make a cut, you know, you might have a board that looks straight when you first cut it, and then, you know, a couple minutes later it's warped. I cut this log into a couple 8x8s here, and then I was going to cut 1x8s out of it. But after looking at these 4 8x8 sections that I have here, there's really no orientation to where I could put these on the mill and cut them to make straight boards. So at this point, I'm just going to basically scrap this one, but I'll keep these, probably cut them in half, set them up somewhere around here, and I'll just use them to you know, stack my boards on. So they'll get used for something at least, but definitely not going to get any boards out of this.